Good morning. At the onset, I'd like to thank the organizer for this opportunity, particularly my friend Dr. Rajesh, who personally called me almost 8 months back and making sure that I'm here. In next 15-20 minutes, I'm going to talk about a magic drug that is going to cure all kinds of neurosepsis in the Indian nurseries. Let's see what's the answer. Simple case scenario. A 26-year-old mother delivering a healthy baby 3.4 kg. Baby cries immediately after birth, there is no asphyxia. Gets into trouble immediately after birth, gets respiratory distress, goes on, is being referred for the ventilator to a pediatrician, to a nearby NICU. My friend collects the culture, and on the 4th day is calling me that the culture is showing E. coli, which is resistance to most of the antibiotics except carbapenems and colistin and all those things. I said that, why do you want me to be here? He says that I'm really shocked looking at the census report. And my gut feeling was, the report is right, but I'm sure that you are feeling that the report is wrong. And that's the reason to call me. It doesn't matter. This was just one for telephone discussion. On 6th day, this baby is getting high grade fever, and again ventilator settings goes wrong, goes back to high settings. And that's the time another brother is taken, and again after 2 days the culture is showing Klebsiella, now not sensitive to carbapenems, only cholesterol. This is a real scenario. In fact, this happened 2 years back, but that is what is happening in the most of the Indian NICU these days. This couple, NRI couple, happened to deliver baby in one of the Indian city, and happened to see me because now they are planning for a surrogacy for the second pregnancy. And the concern was that she developed urinary tract infection after the delivery, and still she is getting repeated urinary tract infection because of the resistant organism. And the word she is saying that with every sting and every pain, my heart sinks at the thought of how many antibiotics I have to left to use this time. So every time she goes to a urologist and she is asking that, now what? The antibiotic that she is receiving right now in USA is not the routine ones. She is going for looking at cultures. She is going for the intravenous antibiotic for the urinary infection that she is facing. The scenario is that we know that sepsis is one of the biggest killer. Out of under 5 mortality, 44% neonatal deaths happens because of the 3 major causes. One of them is preterm, second is antibiotic intrapreterm complication, and third is neonatal sepsis. And still we do not answer how to kill these bugs. When I started to look at the literature, I received so many references right from Calcutta and East and West. Everyone, these are single center reports reporting that gram-negative is a common organism and there is multiple drug resistance happening in the last 5 years. You look at the more literature, and it's interesting to find that. Can I have the pointer, please? Pointer. Okay. Now, if you look at this report, you can see here that this is coming from the major private laboratory network. This is not necessarily coming from the neonatal ICU. This involves 135,000 cultures from the blood, from the body fluids and all those things. And out of 135,000, 14% cultures are coming positive. Interestingly, this is representing all over India. The samples are being collected from 425 cities, 27 states, 1,820 collection centers. So this is a huge cohort. And the outcome was that it is showing most of the organisms where carbapenem is resistant. It's a huge number that ultimately we will accept, and we feel ashamed about that good number of bacteria are really resistant to the major antibiotic. The recent study known as a Danish study from my friend Ramesh Agrawal and Jiva, published in the Lancet, Delhi Neonatal Infection Study Group. They had this study over a period of 3 years, coming from 3 major centers from Delhi, All Institute of Medical Science, Vardhan Naveed Medical College, and Maulana Medical College, Maulana Azhar Medical College, where you can see the cohort of 1,934 blood culture positive, incidence of the neonatal sepsis, out of which 840 were culture positive and 1094 were negative. If you look at the numbers, impressive, but the fatality rate is disappointing. 25% of the babies are dying because of the sepsis. And those who are culture positive, 50% die. And 67, while with the negative, just 8.8% die. So 50% of culture positive babies do not survive, they die. And this shows the severity of the problem. If you look at the kind of organism that they had, the 22% were Acinetobacter. The number changes, but depending on the center, the organism also changes. One center shows high incidence of Acinetobacter, other one is Pseudomonas, and third one is Coagulus negative. Doesn't matter. What is more worrisome is the death. Pseudomonas culture positive showing 78% baby died. I'm really worried about this number. Group B strep, just 1% of incidence, but those who had 62% died. And that means it is not the matter that we do not recognize sepsis early, we do not have the support system to treat the shock, septic shock and all that. Simply, we do not have any drug at this stage to kill these resistant organisms. 3 centers, as I told you, that one center is reporting 27% Acinetobacter, other center is reporting 25% Klebsiella, and third one is 45% of Coagulus instead. And that shows that the center-wise, the organism changes. The conventional teaching was early sepsis and the late sepsis. Organism for early sepsis were gram-negative, and organism for the late sepsis were more of the gram-negative coming from their nosocomial infection and the bacterial flora of the nursery. That has also changed now. There is no difference between the gram-positive and gram-negative sepsis. The kind of organism they had, the familiar names, Pseudomonas and Acinetobacter and the Citrobacter and Klebsiella and all those. Doesn't matter whether culture is present on day 1 or it is present on day 7. The organism remains same. This is the one which is very important to all of us, to me and those who are sitting in the audience. Look at the antibiotic background. This study defined multi-drug resistance as when the bacteria is resistant to more than 3 groups of drug, it is known as a multi-drug resistance. They screen for major 5 drugs: X-ray spectrum cephalosporins, aminoglycosides, carbapenems, tazobactams, and quinolones. And then you can see here that 82% of Acinetobacter were multi-drug resistance. They were resistant to more than 3 groups of drugs. 54% of Klebsiella were multi-drug resistant. So there was high degree of resistance to reserve antibiotic was seen. And as I said, that almost 50% of the culture positive babies died. Most important part was that mortality was same between culture positive or sensitive antibiotics and resistant pathogens. What does mean? I repeat here, the mortality was almost tune of 50% between 2 groups, that is your culture positive sepsis to resistant pathogen and culture positive to sensitive pathogen. There is no huge difference, 50 and 70%. Why should a baby die where they have positive sepsis with sensitive pathogen? That means the virulence is very bad. Before you catch them, they kill the babies. That is what is happening. What about gram-positive organisms? We are really a little bit because here we are getting sensitive strain, but mind well, this is only 3 centers. We do not know anything about other centers all over India. And why this is happening? Nearly quarter of Acinetobacter and 3/4 of Klebsiella showed NDM1. Anyone knowing this mnemonics? New Delhi methicillin beta-lactamase organism. The killer one, which is killing which is producing resistant to most of the antibiotic these days. So mind well, just to summarize, early occurrence of sepsis, another part of the study was that most of the sepsis happened within 72 hours. Quarter of the culture positive within 24 hours. 2/3 within 72 hours. And no difference in the early or late sepsis. Two important things: no difference between early and late sepsis organism, no difference in the mortality of early and late sepsis, and no difference whether you are facing in a culture positive sensitive or resistant bacteria. A pathetic situation that we are facing. And that brings the topic of antibiotic resistance. There is a need of global solutions. I try to look at the other places. Is that we are to be blamed, or there are some other places also facing the same problem? Look at the world map here. You can see Klebsiella pneumonia is spreading all over the world. It is very bad for the epidemics and the spreading happening in the Europe, part of the Colombia. Totally epidemics of endemicity was reported totally from Colombia. USA also had several outbreaks along with China, and of course we are there to share the problem. What about another killing bacteria that is killing enzyme, that is NDM1? You can see here it originally started somewhere in Asia, our country, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Bigger the star, more is the number. What worrisome is that it also is there somewhere everywhere in Europe, and the same bacteria is seen in Canada and USA. Third killer bacteria is a varroa encoded metabolism. Again, can be found anywhere in the world. So they are there to kill us, and we need to find a strategy for that. If you look at antibiotogram, you feel good about this Klebsiella and the oxygen that is producing pneumonia because you have got colistin and the carbon concentrate there. But what about NDM1? In the whole pattern disease resistance, only sensitive to colistin and TG cycline. You feel good, yes, I have got colistin with me, my baby will survive. On day one, I said colistin. Mind well, colistin bacteria are smarter than what we think. Over a period of time, colistin resistance is increasing. This is 2011. 310 publications are there which already showed colistin resistance, and what has happened in next 5 years, that is yet to be reported. But I have one figure for that. Bacteria are smarter than, as I told you. Different bacteria find different way to kill the antibiotics. Bacteria finding different way to kill the antibiotics. But again, we are smarter. We say, okay, colistin is there. Let's start using in a combination, synergetic action. Better action of the colistin is still with the rifampicin, meropenem, minocycline, and all that. So again, as a clinician, you feel that yes, there is something by which my baby can be saved. Again, look at the word checkmate to our last time of the defense. Coming from Bhubaneswar, 216 culture positive babies, adults or babies having resistance to most of the antibiotic by all the organisms. Look at that. Colistin, TG cycline, you have got Klebsiella, you have got Enterococcus, Enterobacter, Citrobacter. Nothing is left for us. The last line of defense has gone, and that's a checkmate to our last line of defense. We do not have any antibiotic based on which we say that don't worry, I have something for this baby. And that is the Lancet publication coming from the BBC News. Antibiotic resistance shaping developing world. The resistance is there. It is something like 20-30% in the developed country. The worrisome is the developing countries, and that to the BRICS country. India leading the way, followed by Pakistan, followed by the South Africa, and China and Russia. So what is the solution? We should restrict sale of the antibiotics so that we do not develop the resistance. But you can't do that. Because non-availability of killing of the death because of the non-availability of the antibiotic is more than the death because of the resistance. So you can't stop the excess. You can restrict excess. Unfortunately, by providing access, it has gone to excess, and that is causing problem. We have ample, for right and left, you get antibiotics. Over the counter also these days you can antibiotic. We do not have Schedule H or Schedule D drugs where the sale of the antibiotic is restricted. And what has happened? We have grown antibiotics, undisciplined, simple fever antibiotics started by any general practitioner, any person on their own, their self-medications. For cough and cold antibiotics being started these days. Over-dependence on the CRP. People follow CRP to stop antibiotic. Is it scientific? We need to think about that. And then culture of culture is not there. We need to develop the culture of sending blood culture or any body fluid, which is important. Another issue is the income, our overall status, financial status improved. Income status has gone up in Indian population. But problem is the hygienic conditions. You can see the samples, 50 samples taken from the various water sources. Those 171 samples from the seepage where NDM was positive. And these were drinking samples, therefore the water usage samples. Against the clean lines where only 4% was positive. That means that before you know, your gut is already colonized with this deadly and the killing bacteria. And so much we true for our babies and everywhere. And that is what the problem is. And that is why the Swasthta Abhiyan started. I felt good when I noticed this in the CDC article saying that Indian government pushed the initiative. The problem is that we will get this result, the result of this Swasthta Abhiyan will reach will be seen after 5 to 6 years. So what about these 5-6 years? We need to have some legislation by which over the counter antibiotic can sale of the over the counter antibiotic can be stopped. You can see that India and Pakistan, the sale of this carbapenem antibiotic is increasing day by day. We find the resistance, we use antibiotic, and we find resistance again against that. We know how to get over this problem of resistance. No proper antibiotic by any means. Proper antibiotics prescribed for prematurities, meconiums, asphyxias, all maternal babies, but that is not required. Ask yourself whether this baby deserves to go on antibiotic or not. You should have the protocol for starting antibiotic, and you should have the kind of antibiotic as in the previous lecture discussed. Everyone need to follow the same protocol. The junior or senior, everyone is answerable for change of antibiotic. Treat infection and not the colonization. Bacteria isolated from other body fluid, ET or catheters or long line need not to be treated. Route of infection control has to be there. We already discussed about how to hand wash, stick prevention, bundles. No need to go into that.
Half a minute.
Yeah. We need to follow the 10-point action plan. Always take blood culture prior to start of antibiotic. Use of narrow spectrum antibiotic. Do not start treatment as a general rule. Develop local antibiotic policies. Trust the microbiology. Stop believing that a raised CRP means the baby is definitely septic. If blood culture is negative at 3 days, please stop antibiotic. So developing a culture of sending blood cultures, if negative, be bold and stop. It is not, at the most, if you are wrong, in front of you, baby will deteriorate, doesn't matter, you can restart. But that will never happen if you believe your microbiology. So what is the answer to the initial question? Which end will work in Indian NICU? I am sorry I can't give the answer. You try your luck. You ask for cultures from your local, get the reports, look at your antibiotic param, and based on that, decide which antibiotics should be used. Prevention of the sepsis has to be priority on a war-food basis. 10 rule of starting and stopping and usage of antibiotics to be followed, and it's a question of our own image as a community and the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta, for making us aware of this very scary and real situation facing us. Any questions from the audience? Okay, since we are running.
There is lot of antibiotic use in animals and they do affect the resistance of our human bacteria, and they have a lot of influence in affecting such resistance.
I fully agree with you because of restriction of the time, we didn't put that slide here. But there is a lot of usage of antibiotic in animal population, and that gene is being transmitted to the gene that the bacteria or to the gene in the bacteria that we face, like in the as a nosocomial infection or the colonization, and that is how the resistance increasing. But we can't. There is different animal population, and what need to restrict antibiotic usage at that level.
Mainly they are using in foders and different culture media like scream culture and fish culture in fodders of the animals. Those are used and that propagates resistance.
I would like now. I would not like to invite Dr.